Breaking news, the United States and Israel have just begun striking some energy facilities in Iran. This comes very quickly after Trump had a 48-hour ultimatum towards Iran. If the Strait of Hormuz is not opened up, then they would go for infrastructure strikes within Iran that could possibly target energy grids, electrical grids, water supplies, and more for that as well. This comes from this breaking article as well. President Trump says we're about to find out what happens if Iran does not open the Strait of Hormuz within the next 27 hours. We're about halfway into the president's deadline for that ultimatum to Iran about the Strait of Hormuz. The president wrote, if Iran doesn't fully operate without the threat, the Strait of Hormuz within the 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first, which was last night. Iran's Speaker of Parliament responded immediately after that happens. The critical infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and oil facilities through the region will be considered legitimate targets and destroyed in an irreversible manner. And we have seen this video of just now massive blackouts across Tehran after U.S. airstrikes target the city's electrical grid. And below this, we have a tweet which we will go further into on another one, but Iran published the exact list of targets they will strike if Trump bombs their power grid, which from this video, it could be very well that some of these could very well have been targeted. And below is a list of addresses of a possible retaliation point and what exactly they do for each one, which in another tweet we will talk about. But overall, it's 12 named facilities, 6 countries, 0 military bases on the list, 100% civilian infrastructures, water and power, if these addresses were indeed to be played out, which consist of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan as well for some of these locations. We can go into a response from a military spokesperson, delivers an English message directly to Trump. Hey Trump, you're fired. You're familiar with this sentence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The central headquarters of the Iran address. And here we go for this later, more in-depth tweet, which basically talks about how this situation would indeed be playing out. So Iran just threatened to destroy every desolation plant in the Middle East. Here's how much each country depends on them to survive, which would be coming from the addresses if that were to be playing out as well. If Trump in the US did indeed just drop those strikes, which we did just see in those videos. So we have Kuwait, 90% of all drinking water from desolation, one strike could mean 0 water for the entire country. 86% dependent, no backup supply exists. Israel, 75% dependent, already the target of Iran's retaliation threats as well. Saudi Arabia, 70% dependent, largest desolation capacity in the world, also largest target. Bahrain, 60% dependent, desolation plants already hit in the past 2 weeks. Qatar, 50% dependent. Ras Laffan Energy Complex already struck. UAE, 42 to 50% dependent, home to some of the world's largest plants. That could be a possible 100 million people who cannot survive without desolation. These are desert nations, no rivers, no lakes, no other water sources that can replace what a desolation provides. Atlantic Council confirmed several limited attacks on desolation plants in Iran and Bahrain. First time in history. Iran just proved the concept works. Within the island, one strike of 30 villages is lost water from that. Now they're threatening to do it in every country in the Gulf. The UN warned of global water bankruptcy in January. India is sinking. America is drinking. And now the only water source keeping 100 million people alive in the desert is a military target. This is the most dangerous escalation since water became a human right. Prepare accordingly. And we can see these water sources all throughout the map of possible targets that Iran could be striking. So as you can see, escalating is going on a lot as well. This comes from the multi-week war between Israel and USA and Iran as well, which seems a lot of escalation and a lot of this has started because of the nuclear plants or the nuclear weapons that Iran could have possibly been making, and that Israel could have also influenced the United States to act on this decision as well. And as we can see over these last couple of weeks, we have heard multiple times from Donald Trump that this will be the war is over, this and that are destroyed, and their bases are destroyed, their leaders are taken out. But we can go through every event in history, or at least through recent history, and we can understand that you cannot bomb a country into submission. You weren't able to do that with the United Kingdom in World War II. After France fell, you couldn't do it to Germany in 1944 when they were starting to lose their empire. You couldn't have done it in Vietnam with the USA and Vietnam. And there were many other instances, I'm sure, where this of trying to bomb a country into submission usually does not work out. And we can see that playing out again with Iran and USA. It's just simply historical. It just does not work out to bomb a country into submission. And now what is probably one of the most anti-American wars, which a lot of Americans and polls have seemed to be against this, are now starting to come out. And by having us in a war in the first place, which is just completely useless and against what the American people are wanting. And what we're trying to do in this war that no one wants is trying to bomb a country into submission, which we know very well does not work. Now, Iran has lost a lot, and they're kind of, I guess you could say militarily, they are losing. But in terms of strategy and overall long term, Iran doesn't have much else to lose. So if you have nothing else to lose, why would you surrender to something that is being bombed by submission, when usually by history that does not work? Now, Iran, they have a possible $2 million per vessel, which is here on Polymarket Breaking. Iran begins collecting $2 million in transit fees per vessel for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. And we can see here, if this is indeed going to be playing out, about 140 vessels a day pass through the Strait of Hormuz. That could be $280 million a day, $2 billion a week, and $100 billion per year. That could be very well costing the United States and many other countries a lot more for these vessels as well. So that's also something very serious that needs to be looked on as well. Now, we heard from Trump that the Strait of Hormuz, there were vessels going through, and with a tweet that came out from a politician, which was deleted very quickly afterwards. So we can kind of see there's just been a lot of line from the United States leaders about this war. There's been a lot of talking points and manipulation with their speech, where they are saying this is going great, the war is ending soon, and then even a couple hours later, maybe even a couple days later, which just exactly happened like that, they will come out and say the exact opposite and say, we're going to obliterate them, we're going to go to war if this does not happen, here's our ultimatum. So it's a big back and forth loop, and not much is really being accomplished, and this very well could be a dragged out war unless we do start to see some negotiations, which we do know with Trump is a negotiation from Trump would basically mean that the U.S. lost, which to Trump wouldn't be something that he would want to look for. And for Iran to take a peace deal, that would basically mean the United States, for them, would be a victory, just because they didn't get a favorable peace deal, which at the moment it kind of seems like that is what Iran is looking for, is a more favorable peace deal. So we'll have to keep covering this and see how all this is playing out. We have a Russian defense minister, obviously from a different nation, but always important to get multiple sources to look at this as well, which they say, yes, what we are saying is true. Iran possesses an offensive missile system that the United States does not have. There are highly advanced missiles that have not yet been used. Iran has a stockpile of missiles capable of destroying the entire Middle East, not just Israel. We call the United States and Israel to immediately stop the war and declare the failure of the military operation against Iran. Otherwise, the losses and damage will be a surprise. That is all. So that is a warning from a Russian defense minister, but obviously from another nation. It is always not always the greatest thing to look at one source and just believe it fully. Now we have here a U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. We will have 50 days of higher prices for 50 years of no Iran nukes. So I thought that was a very interesting statement. So if we look over to Grok, we have the U.S. Treasury Secretary. We will have 50 days of higher prices for 50 years of no Iran nukes. And we want to know, how true is this statement in short? Which, if we go after Grok to look it up, we can see the response on here as well. So the statement is essentially true. U.S. Secretary Scott Bessent made a very similar remark recently in interviews. He said U.S. could tolerate around 50 days of temporary elevated prices due to the ongoing U.S.-Israel war with Iran, disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, and resulting oil and gas price spikes in exchange for 50 years of not having an Iranian regime with a nuclear weapon. He framed it as a short economic pain for long-term security, adding that he wasn't sure of the exact timeline, but the trade-off was worth it. The viral phrasing closely matches his words and spreads widely on X as a direct quote / summary. In short, yes, he said exactly that, and it's accurate. And what we also want to know, because now that we know the statement was indeed said, we want to know is, how true will this play out? And we can see the response from this as well. And with Grok, the statement 50 years of no Iran nukes part is highly speculative and unlikely to fully play out as phrased. Even if current military actions succeed in preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons in the short term or in the near term, short-term reality is higher prices from the ongoing U.S.-Israel war with Iran have already caused oil spikes, settling around $95 to $100 recently, leading to elevated U.S. gas prices. And Bessent's temporary framing assumes quick resolution and price normalization post-conflict, which aligns with historical oil shocks if disruptions end soon. But the war is ongoing as of late March 2026, so the pain could last longer than 50 days. So long-term reality, the 50 days side, or 50 years side, is no, Iran does not currently have nuclear weapons. Per consistent assessments, U.S.-Israeli strikes have damaged key sites like entrances and related infrastructure, likely delaying or degrading enrichment restart. No evidence of active weapons grade enrichment resumption amid the war. However, no nukes for 50 years is optimistic at best. Iran retains capability of the weapons research, and experts note military action can't permanently erase this bombing craters facilities, but doesn't eliminate know-how or potential covert rebuilding. If the region survives, pressure could restart pursuit, especially post-war. Historical parallels show setbacks delay, but don't guarantee decades-long prevention without sustained diplomacy and verification. In short, the war may buy years of delay, perhaps a decade, if facilities stay crippled and inspections return, but claiming 50 years of assured non-nuclear Iran is more political rhetoric than realistic prediction. Nuclear latency persists, and long-term outcomes depend on regime stability, future diplomacy, and global enforcement far beyond current strikes. So we can see here is that actual statement is a bit more of a rhetoric and not 100% truth. And we could definitely see that it wouldn't cripple them for 50 years. It could be a couple years, but because they already have a lot of the research, that very well couldn't be a very large degree. And this could play out in the near future as well, if we were to see some sort of deal come about as well. Because like we've seen, you can't bomb a country in a submission. So if the U.S. wants to escalate and send ground troops in, which many military prospects and military hearings have just been basically hearing from soldiers that they do not want to die for Israel in a useless war. So the important things that we need to look at is, how dangerous is it truly if Iran were to get a nuclear weapon? What is going on right now between Israel and Iran? Has Iran done more bad to Israel than what Israel has done to Iran? And a lot of people will say, well, you have Iran that is threatened to do all these things to Israel and the United States and death to America. But when you look at what's going on in the world, what you truly see is you have one country that's saying, hey, I'm going to bomb you. And then on the other country, you have a country that's actually doing the bombing. So you tell me what you think about that. There's two countries. One says, we're going to bomb you. The other one actually bombs them. So that to me just clearly tells what country could very well have been escalating this a lot more than the other. And yeah, very well, it's probably not the best thing to say, hey, we're going to bring death to you, we're going to bomb you. But then again, you have a country that's literally bombing the country that says that they are going to bomb them. So there's definitely a double standard there as well. Not to mention the U.S. missile that actually killed 150 school students or so, something very similar to that. That is definitely something that needs to be watched out. So what we are seeing right now could very well be the start to the end of this war, in which it could be a very well downfall of Trump's presidency and administration. But obviously we will just have to let time do its thing, keep up to date on the news, and all we can do is hope and pray for the best. So thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We will be doing more future news videos for highly tense events like we have seen like this as well. And if you haven't seen us below, check out some of our other socials on the description below, where we will be streaming very soon for Kick, where we can get more live event streaming actions, and we can also have our Twitter, or I guess you could say X, profile as well, and then our YouTube, which we also post on, which is where this video is from. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.